Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Between now and August 10th, if you use this promo code, you will automatically be entered into a drawing where 4 winners will each win one of the Commander 2018 pre-constructed decks. See the description below for more details. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. And there is so much going on right now. There are many factors that are impacting card prices. We're going to talk about all of them. These factors include the changes with the Legacy Ban and Restricted list, the Commander 2018 information we got on Thursday, not to mention the Core Set 2019 that just launched yesterday. So there is a lot happening. Now in this particular video, we're not going to talk about core set cards individually because we did a special video on those yesterday. So I'll link that at the end in case you missed it. Quickly before we get started though, just a fast reminder, if you heard at the beginning of the video, there is a promotion going on with Flipside Gaming. Check out the details in the description below to find out how you could perhaps win one of the 4 Commander 2018 decks when they come out on August 10th. Also below, you'll find links to our Patreon page as well as some products on Amazon. All of those links are ways to help support the channel. As always, thank you not only to the folks that look at those, but to all the viewers. Y'all make the channel what it is. Let's get into it though. We're going to start off, as we always do, with the top 5 standard legal cards that have lost value this week. Coming in at number 5 is Ronos, the Indomitable. Down 77 cents to 13.86. Well, Ronos has had kind of a lackluster past meta. He had a little bit of success here and there in some stompy decks, but that deck didn't do quite as well as a lot of people were hoping and thinking that it might. Things could change in the next meta. As a matter of fact, I have already seen this card showing up in a lot of the Sarkhan's Unsealing builds that many players are trying early on. We'll have to see how they turn out. But this is approaching rotation, unfortunately, and there isn't a lot of big prospects for this card outside of Standard. It does see a little play in like Counters Company here and there, sometimes like a one-of, but really when it comes to its performance in other formats like Modern, it's not really impressive enough to hold this kind of price point. So once everybody figures out what they're playing over the next couple weeks, expect Ronos to start dropping pretty significantly. Number 4, Hezret the Fervent, down 81 cents to 9.11. There's a lot in common with the previous card and this card. This one's going to be rotating out this fall as well. It doesn't do a whole lot outside of Standard either. You will find this in some Prison decks, Mono Red Prison in Modern and Legacy, usually only like a one-of though typically. Some Pyromancer decks are still running this, but not all. Even if it continues to see play in those places, though, that's really not enough to prop up this price point once we get closer to rotation. And much like the previous card, once people decide what they're playing, and if it doesn't include Hezret, then they're going to be dumping these very quickly. Coupled with all that, this card also had extra copies infused into the environment thanks to its inclusion in one of the Challenger decks. So this card is about to get very cold, I think, very quickly, even if it does continue to see play in this last Standard meta. Number 3, Walking Ballista, down 90 cents to 14.31. Now this card has some things in common with the last couple and some things that it doesn't have in common. One of the things it does not have in common is the fact that it sees a lot of play outside of Standard. And that's not only like Tron decks in Modern, but you'll find this in Counters Company decks in Modern. This will get some play in Vintage shops. You'll find this in Legacy Eldrazi decks. Kind of all over the place, as a matter of fact. But does that mean it's not going to lose value? No, it's still going to lose value because, again, Standard players are holding on to a lot of these copies. And again, once they decide they don't need it, it's going to go up for sale so they can pick up the cards that they do need. So this continues to be soft. Also, much like Hezret, this was in one of the Challenger decks. So there are a lot of copies right now out in the marketplace. The reason the card has been as expensive as it is just simply because it's seen a lot of Standard play. It's been very successful even in this most recent meta. No doubt it will be successful in the next one too. But again, also because of all the play it's seeing in other places. Number 2, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, down 91 cents to 34.59. Now this is the only card on our top 5 today that is not rotating out. The only reason it's going down is just because a lot of packs of Dominaria are being opened and more players are getting their hands on the copies they need of this. Other than that, it's a very successful card in Standard that will continue into the next meta. Control decks have been great. I think Esper Control actually could get a little bit better in this next meta. Aside from that in Modern, I say this every week, but he's actually replacing Jace the Mind Sculptor in a number of decks, or at least knocking the numbers of Jace down here and there. So he's very good in control there as well, and even some vintage plays happening with this card, which is pretty crazy. Number 1, getting into the Trials, down 97 cents to 15.04, another card that's approaching rotation. Good control card though, and it does see play in like the Azorius Modern builds many times, sometimes like a 1 or 2 of. but it does see play there. Again, is that enough for it to hold a price point like $15? No, of course not. This will be going down quite a bit. I do think it could still see some play in this coming standard because it actually has been looking okay recently in some of the standard control decks from the previous meta before Core Set dropped. But really, I would expect this to come down quite a bit in the coming weeks as it moves closer to rotation, and the play that it sees is not going to warrant this kind of price point. Alright, let's move on to the top 5 standard legal cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5 is Werk's Bladewing, up 22 cents to $2.24. You're going to notice that the prices for standard are still pretty conservative right now. People are going to wait and see what happens this weekend and the next weekend and probably the next couple after that before everyone's going to feel comfortable buying into a deck. But I'll tell you right now, dragons have a lot of early buzz. I've seen mono red dragon decks. I've seen some Naya dragon decks. I have actually seen 4-color dragon decks. A lot of players are exploring this archetype, and this card has gotten pretty hot because of that. Number 4, Nicol Bolas God Pharaoh, up 22 cents to $7.39. So this card's heating up a little bit as a lot of players feel that Grixis is going to be more powerful in the next format thanks to some of the cards that were coming from Core Set, especially Nicol Bolas the Ravager. So a lot of people looked at that Nicol Bolas the Ravager card and thought, you know, it's a little tough maybe to cast with 3 different colors and it's very expensive to transform. But you know what? A lot of pros are looking at that card very seriously for Grixis mid-range, dragon decks. I've even seen some mono red decks splashing black and blue to play the new Nicol Bolas and the Scarab God. So there's definitely going to be a lean towards Grixis, especially in the first few weeks, I have no doubt, and this card is riding that a little bit. I've actually seen a few early builds that aren't even running any 2019 cards yet, just starting to incorporate this in. You'll find that sometimes on Magic Online. You couple that with the fact that Grixis was actually kind of making a comeback anyway towards the end of that last meta, and this card is one people are paying attention to. Number 3, Thematic Compass, up 35 cents to $2.73. This was on our list last week too. Players are paying attention to this because it's part of the Sifterworm deck that snuck into the end of the last meta, and it is already being upgraded by some for this upcoming meta with cards like Banefire. Can that deck be successful in the new meta? I guess time will tell. Number 2, the Scarab God, up 42 cents to $18.52. And yeah, this is on here too. I mean, it's been looking better towards the end of this previous meta, and like I said, the speculation is that this gets even stronger in this upcoming meta. Now, the only thing to remember is this will be rotating out in the fall, and a lot of standard players, the serious ones, already have their copies of this. They've been hanging on to them all along. So I don't expect this to spike wildly or anything, even if it is very successful in the coming weeks. I do think it could maybe go up a little bit, at the very least, maybe not go down like it has been. But as we get closer to the fall, expect this card to have some pretty heavy losses. It's a great commander card, but doesn't see a ton of play outside of casual formats. And number 1, Vraska's Contempt, of 45 cents to $13.57. So again, this is all about speculation that black is going to be more prominent going forward. And this card was already very prominent and very successful in standard. But now a lot of players are looking at decks like Mono Black Zombies as a potential tier 1 deck in this next meta. Not to mention, like I said, the Grixis builds being stronger and maybe more prevalent. So basically, if you're in standard and you're playing black, you're most likely running these, right? Alright, let's move on to the top 5 modern legal cards that have lost value this week. Coming in at number 5, Scapeshift down $2.10 to $30. This is the Morningtide version, of course. The Core Set 2019 version you can actually pick up now for around $13 or so, which is pretty awesome if you've been waiting to build a Scapeshift or Titan Shift deck for Modern. Now, the Morningtide version is a little bit hard to find in good condition because that particular set had a lower print run comparatively to a lot of Modern era Magic. So don't expect this thing to get down to like the $10, $15 mark like its new version, but it will probably come down at least a little more before it stabilizes. Number 4, Seedborn Muse, down $2.49 to $18.60. This is the 10th edition version here. Fantastic commander card, but it was just reprinted in Battle Bonds, so it is still very soft. Number 3, Dark Confidant from the original Ravnica City of Guilds, down $3.48 to $72. We talk about Bob all the time, so I don't want to spend too much time on him. Basically, he's seeing less and less and less play in the humans decks. Virtually no play, it seems like, nowadays in the humans decks, at least the more successful builds. And Jund had a little bit of a slump, although it has come out of that. Put it all together, and this card has been losing a little value. $72, though, is still a pretty high price. I think this will come down, maybe settle into the mid-60s, perhaps. Number 2, Sword of Fire and Ice, down 380 to 5880. This is the Modern Masters version. We've been talking a lot about this as well as the original version of this card on the Market Watch for a while now. A number of weeks ago, it began heating up due to the fact that Battle Bond was previewed and then eventually released. And a lot of players picked this up as a reaction to the Is It paired commanders that are in that set. So that was the initial push for this card. Then a couple weeks ago, as we were approaching the Banned and Restricted List update, this picked up more momentum as a lot of players were speculating that maybe Stoneforge Mystic would become unbanned in Modern. Well, the card got even more inflated during that time, and of course now we know that that did not happen. Overall, this is still a great card for casual formats. It sees a little competitive play also in Legacy and Vintage, but I do expect this to lose more value over the coming weeks. Number 1, Crucible of Worlds. 2 versions here. 5th Dawn down 582 to 4775, with the 10th edition version down 832 to 5029. Much like Scapeshift, which we saw a few moments ago, this card is being reprinted in Core Set 2019 as a Mythic, and because of that, this is getting very, very soft. Now, the new version you can pick up right now for about $20 or less, which is actually kind of awesome, and it's still going down, as well as these will continue to go down some more. One of the reasons these cards are going down as fast as they are is because the demand is quickly being satisfied now thanks to the reprint. And it has been a long time since this has been reprinted, so scarcity was definitely an issue, leading to some of the higher price points that we saw over the last few months. Alright, let's move on to the top 5 Modern legal cards that have gained value this week, and you're going to see a few Commander cards sneak in here again because Modern is kind of slow. Right now, everyone's focused on Commander because of Battle Bond and Commander 2018. Standard has a lot of focus on it and will continue to have focus on it due to Core Set. Modern is kind of soft right now, just generally. Number 5, Polluted Bonds, up $1.56 to $8.63. Well, here's the first card on the list today that's moving because of Commander, not because of Modern. And in particular, this is moving because on last week's episode of the Command Zone podcast, they talked about underrated Commander cards, and this was one of them. Now, this being a rare from Shadowmoor, which those cards tend to get a little spiky anyway when people pay attention to them because of the lower print run compared to other Modern era Magic sets, yeah, this one moved actually quite a bit this week. Number 4, Myosian of Life's Web, up $2.48 to $9.79. This was on our list last week as well, and another Commander card here as opposed to a Modern card on the list, but this one is popular because of a lot of players gravitating towards some of the 5-color builds thanks to Joda from Dominaria. And this is an awesome card if you can cast it for 1 of each mana and get it out quicker. Number 3, Engineered Explosives. Okay, here's a Modern card. 5th Dawn is up $2.15 to $87.39 with Modern Masters up $2.84 to $85.27. Seems like we talk about this card every week, and yes, this is in a lot of sideboards right now in Modern, showing up in many, many builds. And beyond that, it's in the main deck of Ironworks combo builds, usually like 3 of, so considering how good that deck's been doing lately too, this card has gotten very hot. Number 2, Wall of Shards. This is another Commander card up $2.91 to $8.49, and this one's moving because of Arcades the Strategist, which is from Core Set 2019. That card has got a lot of Commander players thinking about building these Defender wall decks, and this is a great choice if you do that. Only costs 2. When you have Arcades in play, this will attack in for 8, and it has flying. It's kind of awesome. Number 1, Mox Opal from Scars of Meriden, up $5.21 to $109.24. Another card we talk about all the time. It's in so many important decks right now in Modern. Lantern Control, Ironworks Combo, Affinity, just to name a few. It sees play, of course, in Legacy and Vintage too. So ultimately, it goes up, has a pretty big week, as a matter of fact. A little surprising it went up as much as it did. I do think this is a card that will sit around the $100 to $110 mark for a while until it finally sees a reprint. I think that's the only time you're going to see any softness in this card. All right, let's move on to our Vintage Spotlight. And there's actually cards on the Spotlight this week that are moving because of gameplay as opposed to just buyouts. We got a couple buyouts for you too, though. The first one is Guy's Liege from Unlimited, up $10.27 to $14.99. So just an unlimited buyout here. So many of these cards have been going up in value. Even this one, which is not on the reserve list and has been reprinted. Caracas from Eternal Masters, up $15.26 this week to $65. Now, this is a direct result of the Banned and Restricted List update for Legacy we saw just a week ago or so. In particular, Deathrite Shaman leaving the format makes other decks better. One of those decks is Death and Taxes. And what's nice about Death and Taxes is if you're going to buy into a competitive Legacy deck that has a chance of really winning, that's probably one of the cheaper ones that you can invest into. A lot of players are now looking harder at Death and Taxes, leading to an increase in value for this card, which of course is part of that build. Next, we have Brightling. This spiked very aggressively, up 24.61 to 39.25 this week. Right now, there's a lot of people looking at this for Death and Taxes. Hasn't really been tested yet where I feel comfortable saying this will definitely be a part of the deck. And I do think this is a cross between some people testing it out and wanting to try it out in Death and Taxes, and other people speculating that there's going to be players wanting to pick this up for Death and Taxes and maybe buying these copies up. Also, remember, Battle Bond was kind of a thing for like a hot minute. Like everyone talked about it and was excited about it, and then all of a sudden it was Core Set, and then Commander 2018. We just moved along too fast. So when it comes to packs being opened, and as far as how many of these are out there on the secondary market at any given time, I would imagine compared to other newer sets, it's probably far less. So that also might be part of the reason you're seeing such an aggressive spike here. Next is Goblin Lackey. Typically, I don't talk too much about like foil premium cards and such because a lot of times you can't get good data online because there's not enough copies out there. But I felt pretty comfortable with the amount of copies I saw for this from the Vault Exile version. So what this card is doing this week is a Saga is going up $4.33 to $18 with From the Vault Exiled up $30.20 to $49.99. The reason this card is moving as much as it is again because of that banned and restricted list update. Goblin decks looking like they might be getting a little bit better in Legacy now too. And because of that, a lot of people are looking at this card and it has a big week. And finally, for this section, Granite Gargoyle from Unlimited of $56.25 to $73.75, another Unlimited buyout here. This did get a reprint and revised, but it actually is a reserve list card. All right, let's move on to our Commander Spotlight. And there's a lot to talk about here. We have a few random cards sprinkled in, which we'll get to, but a lot of the cards that are moving are a direct result of the information we got on Thursday regarding the Commander 2018 decks. We found out not only what colors they will be, but also the general theme, and people started going out and picking up especially reserve list cards that fall under those themes. Now, could that be some players thinking I'm going to get ahead of it a little bit and I don't want to buy non-reserve list cards because they could be reprinted in these particular products, so I'll go for things that I know won't be there? Yeah, maybe, but I think a lot of the movement we're seeing this week is probably more so due to the fact that you're going to have people speculating that these Commander players are going to want these cards once the decks drop and they're trying to get ahead of it and pick them up now. All right, our first card on the list is Null Chamber, up $4.64 to $8.35. This is a reserve list card from Mirage, and this card was featured on that Command Zone podcast, so that's why it got the extra attention this week. Next, we have Replenish. This is another reserve list card, up $5.63 to $57.20. Now, this is a white card that interacts with enchantments, and we found out on Thursday that there's going to be a Bant enchantment deck as one of the 4 decks for Commander 2018. So you'll notice that some of these reserve list cards that are in those colors and revolve around enchantments, definitely heating up. Here's another one that falls under that category, Dominating Licit, up $8.55 to $12.21. This is an Exodus reserve list card, and it's a creature, but it turns into an enchantment aura, and it has a big spike this week. Urza's Mitre is next from Antiquities, up $8.67 to $35.29, and you know, sometimes old reserve list cards, like from Antiquities, just spike for no reason. So maybe this isn't tied in with the Commander 2018 information, but maybe it is. So I just put it here. One of the decks is going to be an Is It Artifact deck. Is it coincidence that this spiked at the same time? Back to enchantments with Femeref Enchantress. I'm $9.99 to $14.99. Wow. This is a reserve list card as well and falls in the Bat colors. Another reserve list card, Squandered Resources, up $12.09 this week to $23.25. This black-green card interacts with lands, and what we found out on Thursday is there's going to be a Jund deck that has a Land Matters theme in the Commander 2018 lineup, so this card has also spiked very aggressively. Wall of Light, up $15.21 to $27.44. Finally, a card that's not on the reserve list, although it's never been reprinted. Now, this one's moving because of Arcades, and this is a pretty economical wall for those builds. Last Commander card we'll look at is Serra's Sanctum, up $16.61 to $133.69. And again, we have a card that is going to interact with enchantments and will fit into that Bant deck we were talking about. This one was already expensive, but it goes up some more, and it is also on the reserve list. All right, so let's wrap things up with our quick Pauper Spotlight. A lot of the cards that we saw last week just back again. The first one is Icequake, up 61 cents to 147. That blue-black deck continues to gain ground in Pauper, and this is a key part of it to deal with the Scred strategy that you're going to find in the Is It Delver decks. Also important to note that this is one of those cards that was never printed as a common in paper, But because most tournament organizers are going to follow the Magic the Gathering Online rules when it comes to Pauper, and this card was a common on Magic the Gathering Online, it is typically legal, but always check with your tournament organizers. This feels familiar as well. Sunscape Familiar up $1.13 to $2.75 has another big week. This card sees a fair amount of Pauper play. It's great there, but there's also probably some crossover appeal with some Commander players looking to pick up walls that are building into the Arcades deck. So I think that's maybe why this is spiking as much as it is. Pete Bog up $2.41 to $3.24, another card that we saw last week and another card that is part of that blue-black Pauper deck. With that being said, that is our market watch for this week. As you can see, there is a lot happening right now in the market. If you haven't yet, you might want to think about subscribing to the channel to stay informed. Because Core Set 2019, this weekend, we're going to see the first gameplay in Standard with those cards. A lot of changes will occur. You know there's going to be big impacts on the market. And then a week from Monday, they begin the previews for Commander 2018 cards. Once players start seeing those cards and find out what's being reprinted, what's not being reprinted, there's going to be a lot of activity in that Commander secondary market too. But until next time, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.